Hello, I'm Dr. Laura Murillo, President and CEO of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
And I'm Sarah Frazier, Senior Vice President and General Manager of CBS Radio Houston.
We're happy to have you here. Our next mayoral candidate joining us is Adrian Garcia. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate you inviting me to be here.
Absolutely. And so,
here.
of course, the first question we're asking all of the candidates, why do you want to be Houston's next mayor?
You know, Houston has been phenomenal to me and my family. I'm the only American born in my family, and I grew up in this great town. I grew up not speaking English. And yet the city embraced me. It embraced my family. My family made Houston its home in 1959, in June of 1959. And this city really took us in. It gave me the opportunity to work for the citizens of Houston for 35 years as a police officer, as a director of the city's anti-gang office, as a member of council, where I was the chair of the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee. I was the chair of the Minority Women Business Enterprise Committee, and I was the vice chair to Flooding and Drainage Committee, and I was also on the Fiscal Affairs Committee. And then I was Mayor White's Mayor Pro Tem. And then the city also allowed me, this county actually, allowed me to serve you as your sheriff. And so for 35 years, I've simply been working for the citizens of Houston, trying to do everything I could to give back to the city that's given me so much. And so at the end of the day, I want to serve the citizens of Houston because I see Houston as one. I want to make sure that no neighborhood gets left behind, that we don't neglect one neighborhood for another, but really work to make sure that the next generation of Houstonians have the same opportunity to give back and to serve and to lead as I have done as your public servant. And so simply to be said, this city's been phenomenal to me, and I want to make sure it stays a city of opportunity for others.
So you mentioned the next generation, and we have a serious issue with voter turnout and apathy amongst that generation, the millennials and the Latino vote.
Yeah.
How important are those segments, and what do you think you can do to get the vote out?
You know, those segments are critical, and I think that first you always have to give people something to vote for. So I think that, number one, I'm giving the people of this community and millennials and the Latinos in particular a product. I think I've given them a 35-year career of public service, working hard on various challenging issues, never leaving the community, always being there, even for the tough circumstances, but working to provide opportunity, growing the economy, strengthening neighborhoods. And so I believe that, one, you get the community to come forward when you give them something to vote for. And when I was on council, I dealt with a lot of the issues that millennials in particular enjoy. I worked on our parks issue, expanding our recreational facilities, expanding our hike and bike trails, and providing for the expansion of light rail that we're enjoying today. Millennials like that. And I also started the conversation about why shouldn't we consider biking as a true mode of transportation? Millennials love biking. And so these are conversations that I've been a part of. Many people know that I have been a part of this and provide leadership on it. And so I think the way you get folks to come forward is to give them something to vote for. And as far as the Latino community is concerned, you know, I think the community wants respect. I think the community wants to be engaged when there's no election. And so for 35 years, I've been in the trenches. For 35 years, I have been engaging every segment of this city, but also working very closely with the Hispanic community. You know, as a young policeman, when there's no TV cameras, when there's no elections, when there's none of this going on, I was being an after-school mentor at my elementary school and at my middle school. And I also participated in the first Walk for Success at Jeff Davis High School when we were working to bring young people back into the schools and keep them from dropping out. The Latino community wants this kind of respect and wants this kind of attention. They just don't want to be spoken to when there's an election. I think I provide that, and I think these are two tangible reasons why millennials and Latinos will come out to vote in this election.
Well, as you know, something that's been at the forefront of the city is pensions and also revenue cap. Where do you stand on those two issues?
On revenue cap, I support. You know, citizens always have a distrust of government, and they don't have a whole lot of faith that we're using the money wisely. And so when I was on council, I supported putting rev cap in place because it was an instrument to provide discipline to the elected leadership, making sure that not only were we using the money as the people wanted it to be used, but that we were also controlling our appetite for growth and bureaucracy. And so, so I support RevCap. I also support the idea that just like we did in '04 when we put it in place and did not understand the unintended consequences of what it could do to public safety resources that are critically needed, Mayor White put a adjustment to RevCap on the ballot. The people supported it, and they gave us the opportunity to add $90 million to the budget for public safety resources, dedicated public safety resources. And so I believe the RevCap is important. I believe that we can always go back to the citizens to share with them when we need to make adjustments. But the public wants to make sure that we are challenging ourselves, that we're looking for efficiencies, that we're trying to be good stewards with the people's money. And when the people see that you are providing those efficiencies and you're being transparent about it and you're giving folks a tangible return for their investment, I think the people will reward you with trust and confidence. And as someone who has saved over $200 million of the people's money as a sheriff in just one operation, I believe I bring that reform that people are looking for as it relates to city government. And so, once again, I think the RevCap is a good instrument. I think it's important to have, but I will always keep an open mind that if we need to make adjustments to it, that we should do so and take it to the people and ask for their permission. And as it relates to pensions, look, whether it's pensions or our city's finances in general, with the conversation to RevCap, we got to keep those conversations at the table at the same time. One is not mutually exclusive of the other. And so with pensions, look, we want to make sure that, number one, we keep the promises we make to our public employees. We need good people who want to step forward and provide a career service. And then as it relates to police and fire, we want people who are going to be courageous to run to the things that people run from. But at the same time, we have to make sure that the promises we make to these employees that we keep. The challenge is, though, that in 2001, when the changes to the pension benefits was made, we are paying for a cost that we didn't agree to in 2001. In fact, when I came on council in 2004, we started to talk about pensions and the challenges of it. Mayor White and I sat down and we looked at the police pension as an example, and we realized that it was on a non-sustainable track. And so we made reforms to it, and we made reforms to the municipal pension. The challenge has always been the fire pension. And because it's controlled by the legislature, it does not allow for the mayor or city council to provide any negotiations to it on as a needed basis. We always have to wait for every other year when the session's in play that for us to be able to have those conversations. I think that's wrong. And so I have been for local control, making sure that the city elected leadership can provide negotiations, that we can bring people to the table. And so we have to have that local control to create a conversation. Now, I want to be clear. When I say local control, it doesn't mean I want the money. It doesn't mean I want to manage the money. All I want is the ability to sit people down at the table and say, look, the economy is still recovering. The economy is still soft. The markets aren't performing the way we thought they would be. And so the 8.5% projected rate of return isn't realizing itself, and it's creating a artificial deficit, and we have to address that. The city, Moody has just given the city a projected negative outlook. We can't have that for the fourth largest city in America. So pensions is going to be an important issue for us to contend with. But I believe that as a retiree, as someone who's receiving a pension check right now, I think I provide a credible conversation to be had with our employees and our retirees. I want my check. I know they want theirs. But I don't want my wife to get my pension check with a note that says, please do not deposit for another 90 days because we can't pay for it. We can't be on that kind of track. And so I think it's important for us to sit down. We're all in it together. And I think that there are solutions to be had.
How do you think you'll handle what some may perceive as a conflict of interest?
You know, it's not a conflict of interest. I earned what I've got. But I believe that and look, when I was on council, I reformed the pension I was a part of. So and it didn't become richer by virtue of my reforms, in fact, it became much more sustainable. So there's no conflict of interest, and I think by virtue of that leadership and that example, it'll give others confidence that, you know what, I'm not talking out of both sides of my mouth as politicians tend to do.
The Kinder Institute and Dr. Kleinberg just recently published a new study about Houstonians, and for the first time in it, transportation concerns surpassed crime.
Oh, yeah.
So our question is, what are your plans on infrastructure, and particularly the pothole issue?
We're going to fix the potholes.
One at a time.
Yeah, one at a time, but we're going to fix them. And I tell you what, this campaign has taught me something, that potholes do not discriminate. From the richest to the poor side of town, potholes are everywhere. And we got to get it fixed. I mean, it's
the biggest problem.
It is. But infrastructure is significant. I mean, we have to make sure, look, we just had on Memorial Day, we had a flood that devastated many families. And we know that Houston is prone to flooding. We tell the people, though, that we've already spent $500 million of their money, and yet they question the results of that investment. So we have to make sure that we are truly deciding the worst first, making sure that those are public conversations so that people can understand and justify how those decisions are being made. But the reality of it is, when I was on council, this became a huge issue. In fact, when I got elected, I went to the Public Works Director because right before my election, we had a major flood that really affected my district. So I went to the Public Works Director and said, I want to work on flooding. How do I do it? Tell me what I need to do. How can I help you? And he points to the book and he says, that book is worth $2 billion, but that book provides many of the solutions to our flooding problems. Just find me $2 billion. Well, we didn't have $2 billion at hand. We can't issue out that much debt for those kinds of projects. And so we had to create a dedicated revenue stream, which we now have. But we have to make sure we're using it wisely. We have to make sure we're using it strategically. And we have to make sure that all sides of the city, from the richest to the poorest, are receiving benefits from that kind of investment.
Very well.
So where do you stand on Rebuild Houston?
I support it. We have to have that dedicated revenue stream. But, you know, there's a lot of controversy surrounding this program. And so my commitment is to bring transparency to it. The projects are being decided in the conference room. I want to bring them out into the light of day so the citizens and everybody can see them and the engineers talking about these projects, and make sure that staff can justify why this street over that street, and when will this street get its improvements over that street. And so we got to bring some transparency to this and make that a important conversation. But we also have to make a commitment to providing good financials for how the money is being spent, because we're collecting a ton of money. But the people want to make sure that we're using it wisely and using it as we said we would by law.
So one of the things that's happening across the country that I'm sure you're very familiar with is law enforcement and communities and their lack of communication. In Houston, what would your plan be?
You know, in Houston, number one, I would ask my police chief to do as I did. Engage the community regularly. Be out at town hall meetings. Be out at school meetings. Be out at community events. The people have to see the leadership of the law enforcement agency, because when the people get to see you and get to engage you, people know that they can bring issues to you and they can share perspective with you, and it challenges the leadership to get to work and deal with those issues. So number one, I would make sure that my police chief is being visible and engaging of the public. Secondly, I would make sure that we continue to do what we've always done. Invite stakeholders to the table. Tell us how we can do our job better. Make sure that we're making a recommitment to things like community-oriented policing, and making sure that we're finding tangible ways to engage young people in our community. So many young people have zero relationship with their local law enforcement, in contrast to the way it was many, many years ago. In fact, I like telling the story that when I was a kid, in front of my house, a police officer pulls over this vehicle. And he looks around and he sees me in my yard, and he says, you speak Spanish? And I said, yes, I do. And he goes, come here. He goes, help translate for me. So I'm translating for this policeman. And then he pats me on the head and he goes, one day you'll make a good cop. And then this big old giant of policeman gets in his patrol car and drives away, and I'm going like, wow, that was phenomenal. but we knew who that policeman was. The kids in the neighborhood knew who Officer Long was. Today, I bet you that people probably don't know who their local beat cop is because they're busy. They're running from calls to calls.
Well, and it goes back to the city's budget and resources,
That's
right?
That's exactly right. So we have, Chief McClellan wants to add 1,200 new employees to the police department so we can provide more visibility. I support his plan, but we have to make sure to temper it because it's a $105 million investment, and we're all under a new normal, and so we have to make sure that if we're going to make that kind of investment, what should the citizens expect? We got to put that on the table as well.
Okay. So another controversial issue that we've seen, and it's gone back and forth, is the equal rights ordinance. Where do you stand on that, and what do you believe will be our next steps?
I think the next steps, I'm not sure what the mayor's going to decide. I think she's going to try and put it on the ballot for November. So that people can decide. I believe she will not try to repeal it. So I think she'll put it on the ballot. I think that makes the greatest sense for it. Look, as the sheriff, President Bush passed into law a federal law that required me to provide a great deal of protections. A lot of the protections similar to what Mayor Parker put in the HERO ordinance. For inmates, every sheriff, every prison warden has to comply with what is known as the Prison Rape Elimination Act. And if we don't, we're subject to severe penalty by the federal government. And so my simple way of thinking is that if we got to do this for prisoners, for people who broke the law, why couldn't honest, law-abiding people have similar protections? And so I support the ordinance. Just in a matter of fairness and a matter of practical thinking. If the federal government says it's good for prisoners, it ought to be good for law-abiding people.
So about you as a person, just to give us some color on you, who you are as a human being, what is your favorite thing about Houston?
Oh, it's that, Houston is so diverse. It is, we speak over 100 languages every single day. We have the food to accompany the various cultures that we have in our community, the diversity, I think, is our greatest resource. It's our greatest asset, and I just love it. I really do. In fact, I'm wearing a kalava from visiting an Indian temple, and I have my shalwar kameez that is shared with me by the Pakistani community. And then obviously I know where to find a good margarita and a good taco. And so I just love the diversity. I just love how you can turn one corner and you'll find something that new that you haven't experienced, and you find it all in this great city. I think that's on top of many things. Our diversity is what I enjoy about Houston most.
Well, as we close out this segment, anything that you want to leave our viewers with before we close out?
Just simply to say that whether you're a millennial, whether you're an inmigrante, whether you're a business leader, whether you are a person like me that wants to see the city prosper and do phenomenal things. I'm Adrian Garcia. I want to work for you as your mayor, just as I've been doing for 35 years. I've led and managed and reformed a major organization of nearly 5,000 employees, almost a $500 million operating budget. I was able to save you $200 million while I kept you and your family safe. I want to continue to work for you. I'm Adrian Garcia. Hashtag AG2015 is where you can find me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
On
you.
behalf of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and CBS Radio, we thank you for joining us.